Hi, my name is Tasnim Faruque, and I'll be finishing up this case study to rebuttal by Group 9 for the death of Socrates by poison. So just to recap, the death of Socrates was done through legal execution through choice of tea. The tea is said to be made of hemlock or the scientific name Conia maculatum. It's known to be toxic due to the increased amount of alkyl-choline that it causes, and even a small amount is known to be toxic. The details of the death and the effects were captured on scripts by Socrates' disciples, Plato and Xenophon. The effects of the poison have said to have caused centripetal paralysis, cold and stiffness, loss of peripheral sensation, extending centrally from his legs and gradually making his way up to his body. So, continuing forward, this case was rather difficult to assess in a sense because of the time that it was done and because of the lack of, I guess, forensic practices at that time. So there were many limitations because there's no investigations, testing, analyses, or anything done post-mortem. There's not really much technique or methodologies that were even done. But in the present time, the techniques that would be used in cases like this would include toxicology examination of the blood, examination of the gastric content, as well as chemical testing of items that may have residue. Um, and so toxicology examination of the blood and the gastric content gives a good idea of what may have been in that tea. Um, there are many speculations that the tea that Socrates drank was made more than just hemlock and that it may have had mix of like wine or opium through like poppy. Um, so toxicology examinations would have been able to give that breakdown and actually give the determination of death. In this case, it's rather assumed based off of these writings that were passed down on the scripts. The way the symptoms affected him and the nature of his death was written, but because he had told his disciples to just bury his body however they deemed after his death, there was no, at least there's no recollection or written scripts about anything to confirm after. So in that case, like any techniques or um, like post-mortem analyses were just not done or relayed. And moving on to like the reliability of identification of poisoning, it kind of goes hand in hand. There was a lot of information that was learned about hemlock poisoning over the years. Many scientists and physicians researched it, and over time, they started speculating a bit more about Socrates' death, mainly because he didn't have symptoms that were the normal symptoms that would have been caused by hemlock poisoning. For example, hemlock poisoning causes like paralysis, respiratory failure, stomach pain, nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea, all while the consciousness is intact up until the very end. However, Socrates mainly had the paralysis and the respiratory failure, and completely, there was no evidence, there was no information available, nor was there any of the scripts describing him having the gastrointestinal effects of it. Additionally, because it was a legally assisted suicide slash execution because of the crime that he was like in charge of, and also because of the status of his nobility, there may have been information that was um, not written or concealed. So overall, even in that sense, it's just based off of the writings that we have. There was no actual um, testing done. Finally, the request for poison hemlock determination in postmortem biological specimens is quite rare. And that was described well, I believe, by speaker two, who exemplified it in some other uh, case studies or examples that also was through botanical poisoning. But specifically for hemlock, it's been really rare to find for the hemlock determination. And so given the time frame of this case, there likely was not much post-mortem determination done. And so due to that, the reliability is also a little questionable because it's also based off of the writings. And this is my resource. Thank you.